If you've been scrolling through endless lists of PTZ cameras, watching demo reels, and still feel stuck wondering which kit actually delivers on the promises, this review is for you. I've spent the last few weeks setting up a small podcast studio, testing 3 different PTZ models, and combing through the community feedback to see where Tenveo's bundle really shines. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why the idea of a PTZ camera can feel both exciting and intimidating. On the one hand, a single camera that can pan, tilt, and zoom while you stay behind the mic sounds like a dream for live streams, webinars, and even small-scale productions. On the other hand, you're suddenly juggling a lot of variables. Does the auto-tracking actually keep the speaker centered? Will the low-light performance be enough for a dimly lit studio? How many cables do I need to run before the setup turns into a knot? And finally, is it worth the price compared to buying a separate camera, lens, and a manual tripod? The Tenveo PTZ camera bundle tries to answer all those questions in one package. It ships with 330 optical plus 8 digital zoom cameras, an AI-driven auto-tracking joystick controller, and a 4K 5-channel video mixer that has its own LCD screen. On paper, it's a comprehensive solution that promises to cut down on gear, reduce cable clutter, and make multi-camera switching look like a breeze. Who should consider this bundle? If you're a beginner or hobbyist who wants to launch a regular live stream, think a weekly tech talk, a cooking show, or a remote interview series, this kit gives you a ready-to-go setup without needing a separate vision mixing workstation. The built-in auto-tracking is especially handy when you don't have a dedicated camera operator. Imagine you're hosting a cooking demo, you start chopping carrots, the camera detects your movement, zooms in on the cutting board, and stays locked while you move across the counter. All of that happens without you having to manually adjust focus or press any buttons. Working creators with tighter budgets will also appreciate the bundle's all-in-one nature. Instead of buying a dedicated PTZ camera, a separate NDI-compatible switcher, and a pricey joystick, you get everything in a single box for roughly the price of 2 mid-range cameras. The inclusion of SDI, HDMI, USB 3.0, and PO connections gives you flexibility whether you're streaming directly to a laptop or feeding the signal into a professional broadcast deck. Now, let's look at the practical strengths. The most compelling feature is the AI auto-tracking. The camera's software identifies human shapes and keeps the subject centered, even when you're moving around a small studio. In our tests, the tracking held up well for simple gestures, like stepping from a desk to a whiteboard, and didn't jitter when the presenter raised a hand. This is a real time saver if you're going live without a crew. The 30 optical zoom, complemented by 8 digital zoom, lets you pull tight shots without sacrificing image clarity, useful when you need to switch from a wide shot of the set to a close-up of a product. The video mixer's 5-channel capability is another strong point. You can feed each of the 3 PTZ cameras into the switcher, add a laptop source, and still have room for a graphic overlay or a pre-recorded clip. The built-in 5.5-inch screen displays a clean layout, making it easier to see which source is live without looking back at a computer monitor. For someone who's still learning the ropes of live production, that visual feedback reduces the chance of a wrong camera moment during a broadcast. Cable management is also more manageable than it sounds. The PoE Power over Ethernet option means you can run both power and data over a single Cat 5e/6 cable to each camera, keeping the studio floor tidy. In a small podcast room, we ran just one Ethernet line per camera and a single HDMI cable to the mixer, no extra power adapters cluttering the desk. However, there are some practical weaknesses to weigh. The auto-tracking, while generally reliable, does occasionally lose the subject if the background is cluttered with other moving objects, say, a pet walking through the frame, or a second presenter entering from the side. The AI seems tuned for a single human shape, so if you have a multi-person panel, you'll need to manually control the camera via the joystick. Speaking of the joystick, the controller feels a bit cheap compared to professional rigs. The thumbsticks have a loose feel, and the button layout can be confusing at first. After a few minutes of use, you'll develop a muscle memory, but there's a learning curve. Low light performance is another area where the bundle shows its limits. The cameras use a 1/2.8-inch sensor, which is decent for well-lit rooms but starts to introduce noise when you drop the lighting below about 300 lux. In a typical home studio with softbox lights, the footage remains crisp, but if you plan to stream from a dimly lit space without additional lighting, you'll see grain in the shadows. That's something to consider if you prefer a more